Hello everyone, good morning to you. I welcome all the participants. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. It indeed is a great honor to welcome the distinguished speakers, Mr. Ralph D'Souza, an architect, Dean de Cruz, who will be speaking on the theme of the webinar, Revival of Responsible Tourism in Goa, Possibilities and Challenges. Thank you so much, Mr. D'Souza and Mr. de Cruz, for accepting our request. The Department of Economics initiated the webinar series during this academic year to analyze the impact of the pandemic on the Goan economy. These deliberations aim to create awareness in our students and to enable them to gain insights into socio-economic and environmental issues. Our activities aim to give them an understanding of the economy-environment interlinkages and to inculcate in them critical thinking and analytical abilities so that they can be responsible in their actions and active stakeholders and contributors to the society and its well-being. On behalf of the Department of Economics and Carmel College for Women, I once again welcome everyone who has joined. Thank you for your time. Before I hand over to our students, Ms. Lauren Fernandez and Ms. Tabitha Fernandez, who will be anchoring the proceedings, I request you to mute your audios. As in Carmel tradition, we begin with a prayer.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty and ever-loving God, we thank and praise you. You have showered us with numerous blessings, and your presence continuously reminds us of your faithfulness and guidance. We pray that you deepen our comprehension, broaden our thinking, and transform our understanding of what we are about to gain from this webinar. Bless all those gathered here and bless all our efforts. May we all absorb the invaluable knowledge and experiences shared today and put it into practice for the greater good of our state. We ask this through your holy name. Amen. Mary, Queen Beauty of Carmel, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me, Lauren Fernandez, immense joy to be here anchoring today's webinar along with Tabitha Fernandez. Revival of Responsible Tourism in Goa, Possibilities and Challenges is the theme for the webinar today. Tourism, one of the biggest industries in Goa, was already facing a crisis before COVID-19 struck. From large hotel chains to beach shacks to small-time taxi drivers, there is a very demographic of people dependent on the tourism sector. The SOPs undertaken due to COVID-19 are said to have cost Goa's tourism industry rupees 1,000 crore in earnings. The World Travel and Tourism Association has warned that once the pandemic is over, It could take up to 10 months for the industry to recover, which means next year's tourist season would also be affected. The impact of COVID-19 signals the need for efficient and proactive measures to curb the effect on the tourism sector. We will get deeper insights on these issues from the distinguished resource persons today. It is an honor to now call upon Dr. Aldina Braganza, the officiating principal of Carmel College, to address the participants.
A very good morning and season's greetings to everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you, Tabitha. It was so nice to have you in our campus today because for the rest of you who know, we don't have students in our campus and these are really challenging times. So when we do see a student around, it feels great pleasure. I also feel very honored to welcome all of you to today's webinar and our institution, especially our esteemed and distinguished guest, Mr. Ralph D'Souza, and architect, Mr. Dean De Cruz. A warm welcome to our institution, sir. It's really nice. I just give you a small brief about Carmel College. Carmel College is the only women's institution in the state of Goa. It is run and managed by the Apostolic Carmel Management. And our focus is basically to train women, to empower women, and more than anything, to make them altruistic leadership. So value education is a big part of our education. But it's not only about values, but it's also about empowerment so that they make appropriate decisions. So I express my heartfelt gratitude to all those who have contributed to this, to make this webinar a one that will, throw so much of light, and especially the Department of Economics, the HOD, Dr. Ravina, Glancy, Rivia, Pooja, and all the students, okay? Because, it is webinars like these that allow our students, give them insight, to challenge, to question, to look at what can be the future. Yeah, and today's webinar is a series of webinars that the Department of Economics is hosting. Basically, they're looking at how the pandemic has affected our Goan culture and Goan economy. And today's topic is a very interesting topic because we are going through some very unique times, very special times, very strange times, as I call them. Yeah, it is not only the pandemic, but you can see the political culture, the economics, the economic climate, and more importantly, our ecology are all being challenged. And at such times, it is important to hear and get the advice and experience of very important people like erudite people like Mr. Ralph D'Souza and Mr. Dean De Cruz. It is nice to have you all on board, and especially our students will get an insight on how to strike a balance, because we want not only a future, but we want a good future. Goa needs a good future, a stable future. So once again, I congratulate the Department of Economics for putting forth this very current topic for the webinar today, Revival of Responsible Tourism in Goa, Possibilities and Challenges. Thank you, everybody, and a warm welcome to each one of you. I hand over the mic back to you, Tabitha.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Shivana Daporkar will now introduce our speakers for today. Over to you, Shivana.
Good morning, everybody. It's my privilege to introduce the distinguished speakers for the day. Mr. Ralph D'Souza is the chairman of the D'Souza Group, a business house engaged principally in hospitality business, owning resorts, travel agencies, and tour operators. The group also owns a construction company and service apartments, being the latest addition to the group's activities. Mr. D'Souza is on the board of governors, Government of India Ministry for Tourism's Institute of Hotel Management Program, and the senior vice president of the Goa Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Government of Goa has appointed Mr. D'Souza on the board of directors of Economic Development Corporation of the state of Goa, where he was also the former task force member of the Chief Minister's Rozgar Yojana, the microfinance body of the state of Goa, for a tenure of 7 years. Recently, he has been appointed as a board member of the Goa Investment Promotion Board. Mr. D'Souza previously held the positions as the chairman of the Goa America Heart Foundation Trust, the president of Travel and Tourism Association of Goa, the chairman and patron of the Goa Heritage Action Group, a trustee of the Museum of Pristine Art, and was the past chairman of Confederation of Indian Industry, Goa Council. We are indeed honored to have such an eminent personality to give us his perspectives on the topic, and we are grateful to you, sir, for accepting our request to speak to us. Our second speaker for the day, Ms. Architect Dean de Cruz, a graduate in architecture, is actively involved in professional practice as well as in academics. He has conducted numerous workshops and seminars on architecture, planning, and the environment in India as well as abroad. His works and articles have been published in leading magazines in India and abroad. Supported the Royal Art and Architecture Academy Stockholm, Oxford Brookes University UK, and Pratt University New York for their architectural and planning programs in Goa. He is a partner and principal architect in Mosaic Design Combined, a leading design firm based in Goa, involved in urban intervention, architecture, conservation, product, and graphic design. Mosaic strives to provide holistic solutions to its patrons. We explore prospects of symbiotic growth of our clients with nature and encourage sustainable practices in our design. Looking forward to hearing your perspectives on the topic. Thank you.
A very good day, everyone. I'm your second compare, Tabitha Fernandez. And it's a pleasure to have you amidst us, Mr. Ralph D'Souza and Mr. Dean de Cruz. Before we begin with the webinar, this is a small notice going out to all the participants. If you have any questions during the course of the webinar, feel free to type them out in the chat box. They will be noted and they will be addressed towards the end. So now I would like to call upon our first speaker, Mr. D'Souza, to provide your valuable thoughts on this huge concerning topic, revival of responsible tourism in Goa. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. Well, what I'm going to talk to you is whatever brief I was given, and I'm afraid that it's nothing much more than you all already know, but I'm going to give you an insight, take you exactly at the grassroots where the problems are and what is the hope for Goa and hope for the tourism industry. The downturn in the tourism industry started in 2019 when the general economy of the country saw a dive. We had noticed that the footfalls kept on diminishing about a year before the epidemic hit Goa and the rest of the world. So when we actually were hit by Corona, we were already in recession. the recessionary trends were very visible, not only in terms of footfalls, but also in terms of revenues. Since the government collects bulk of the revenues from this industry, we saw the revenues from the government also going down. So this was one indicator. And then we had to face the COVID-19 situation. The lockdown started in March. Until today, the things have not fully revived. Tourism industry is always the first to be affected in case of any crisis and last to recover, because holiday is not a priority among most of us. First, we take care of our food, clothing, house, some comforts in the house, education, and then we put some money aside for a holiday. So what happens is, when there are any crisis, first thing that takes hit is a holiday. And when the holiday takes hit, the tourism industry takes a hit. We have come across such dips before, maybe during the 9/11, during the Surat plague, or even during the collapse of few charters, and when the Lehman Brothers took a nosedive, the economies were affected. But somehow or other, the tourism industry sustained the onslaught, and there was a fairly good revival. But this is totally a different ball game that we are witnessing right now. It's a long haul situation. From the recession, we went down to depression because the revenues were nil. We saw a silver lining during the Diwali days. After Diwali, again, there was complete shortfall as far as the room occupancies were concerned. Same thing will be witnessed during Christmas and New Year, when again there'll be some sort of a revival, and then it will go down again. So we are to be in this situation till November 2021. So it is really a long haul. What started in 219 is going to carry on till 2021. That is the 10 months at least of the 2021 coming year. So it is a huge, huge struggle, huge, huge challenge. And it's a struggle to even keep your face above the water, not only for hotels, but for all the other industries that are dependent on tourism. See the multiply effect. The baker, the fisherman, the vegetable vendor, the fruit vendor, all of them form the part of the supply chain for the industry. We have shacks, we have water sports, we have tourist taxis, we have restaurants, we have so many various tracks and multiple other activities that are tourism related. All of them have taken a hit. The major population of Goa is involved directly and indirectly in tourism. They've all taken a hit. So this hit has gone into the houses of the people in Goa. So what happens here? What is the cause of this recession and the current scenario? Is first, there is a fear of travel. People don't like to travel whenever there are problems. So this is keeping people away, the tourists away from the holiday destinations. Then we have the flight restrictions, domestic as well as international. Now they're increasing the domestic flights, but as far as international flights are concerned, on which Goa depends on its bread and butter, there are no flights till today that have started. We only have the bubbles that are created for Vande Bharat, for people who are stuck outside to be brought to India, and those people who are in India to be taken back home in various countries in the distant shores. As far as the other reasons are concerned, there is economic fears as far as your savings are concerned, as far as your jobs are concerned worldwide. So people don't like to move when such fears are lurking around. We also have other fears of quarantine. Each place has its own different rules and regulations and different intensities of the epidemic. So when you come on a vacation, if there is a compulsory quarantine period, and 14 days you are there, the vacation is over in a hospital. So people don't like to take this risk. They don't like to take this risk because the hard-earned savings that they have got is to have a good time, to rewind and to be at peace with themselves and go back happy. So nobody travels during this time, and this is going to continue for quite some time. Now, why the foreign travel is very important? The foreign travel is important because all the foreign tourists are long stayers. The average stay here is 2 weeks against the domestic stayers of 2 days or 3 days. So for every one couple we get coming from abroad, we have to find five couples in the domestic market to fill those many room nights. So, but we see that it's not going to happen very soon, because as far as the visas are concerned, which is a very important thing, the government of India issues the visas for medical purpose, for business purpose, to NRIs and to your OCIs and all that, but no tourist visas are forthcoming. There's still a blanket ban on issue of tourist visas. So there is no way we can expect any foreigners to come in when these conditions are prevailing. As far as domestic are also concerned, there is a slight change. We'll see a lot of cars in Goa on the roads with all outside Goa number plates. Now, what has happened? These are the people who lived mostly in the metro cities of India. During the pandemic, there was a lockdown and they were all locked inside their flats. So they all suffocated. The moment the doors open, the gates of Goa borders open, they came to Goa, they drove down. They have driven down with their families, with their pets, with their cooks, or with their maids, whatever it is. And they have all taken up accommodations in villas, houses, cottages. And the second wave that has come, they're taken up flats on rent. And these are long-term, 2 months, 3 months, up to 3 months rent. So we have lots of people who have come down, but per se, they're not tourists because they have come down for another reason, and they live in rented apartments. We've had a few people who have come in and staying in, especially the top-end hotels. These are the people who could not move abroad. They travel abroad frequently. So the borders of India are closed. So the next place, I suppose, closest to Europe is Goa for them. So they've been coming to Goa, and we've had some movement there also. So this is the scene, and this is how badly the tourism sector is affected. And as I said before, we're in for long haul, and we expect revival in November 2021. This is my say on the first part of the topic that you all had given me. Should I continue for the second part? Or I'll wait for some time? Because it is divided into 4 parts, is it? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Fine. So do I go or I pause here?
So maybe Ralph, I can take it from there if you would like, and then maybe we can have a little more time on the questions and things like that.
Yeah, no, there are other things that I would like, but this full topic was divided into 4 parts. That's why I could finish whatever I have to say. Then probably you speak, Dean, and then we'll take the questions.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Okay, yeah. The second part is, are we headed in the right direction for a strong revival and what we consider as the backbone of Goa's economy? Well, I don't think we are headed in the right direction. I will tell you the reasons. Goa is a welfare state. Goa offers free education, medicals, even super specialty, medical insurances. We have numerous welfare schemes like Ladli Lakshmi scheme or the pension schemes, and all these are supported by the government. No other state in India have such schemes. So they have to collect revenues that are generated by the industry in order to sustain these welfare schemes. There were two industries, that is, there were major contributors. One was mining and one was tourism. Mining is as good as shut at the moment, so there are no revenues coming in. So the responsibilities are resting on the broad shoulders of the broad and sagging shoulders of the tourism industry. So we have to somehow or other keep the flag flying, and the government has to facilitate, because the survival of the tourism industry is the survival of all the schemes of the education, of the medical, of the salaries of the staff, which comes from the taxes collected from the tourism industry. So we expected certain help, but unfortunately not much has come about. We have a crazy way of renewing our licenses every year, and this takes all the time of the government authorities, because there are thousands and thousands of licenses which they have to renew every year, while central government we have to do once in 5 years. So this has got double effect. One is the industry is put into a lot of trouble and a lot of time is wasted. And secondly, the authorities who are supposed to make sure that the act is implemented in his word and his spirit have no time to do the same. So we see a lot of illegalities that have been happening around. There are a lot of things that shouldn't happen, but the enforcement authorities are busy with other things that have been thrown on the tables. So we see things are not exactly happening the way they should happen. We have got a huge informal sector in Goa, unregistered sector in Goa. And let me tell you for information, it is estimated that the total number of rooms that are in unregistered guest houses or flats, accommodations, that informal accommodation that are presented to various people today amount to 30,000 rooms. And I like to compare this with the state of Kerala, which is one of the foremost tourism states of India. Their total rooms in the industry is little over 15,000. So our informal unregistered sector is twice the size of Kerala's tourism room bank. So if there is a proper law and order, a proper enforcement, we'll definitely get more revenues and there'll be level playing fields. So this is also not happening. So we see that the government should be more serious, because there are ways and means where more revenues can be collected, and these revenues can be plowed back into the welfare schemes of the state that are today sustained by tourism industry. We have got other strategies that the government has adopted, and it was more of a coincidence. During the pandemic, the master plan was passed. We know that there was a huge requirement for master plan. The industry was growing without any direction. There were more of knee-jerk reactions and unplanned growth rather than something that was sustainable and something that considered the carrying capacity of the tiny state of Goa. Goa is a very small state, 104 kilometers from north to south, 65 kilometers from east to west, and it is blessed by the good Lord. Within this 3,000 hectares of land, square kilometers of land, we have sea, we have the beach, we have the lakes, we have the rivers, 350 kilometers of navigable rivers. We have the wonderful hinterland which they're talking about. Now, it's a very sensitive area which consists of all our orchards, our sluice gates, our bunds. In the backdrop, we have a forest and the Western Ghats. No place in the world has got all the facilities. So what we need to do right now is we have to use this master plan to protect Goa's USPs. We are 33 years in this industry, and we get the feedback of all the guests who are staying with us. We ask them, why do you come to Goa? There are 5 things that we have collected. 1, this was right in the beginning. Things are changing now. USPs have been compromised, but nonetheless, because Goa is a clean and a safe destination. The second is because of its natural beauty. Third, because of the hospital people of Goa. Fourth, because of the mixed cultures and cuisine. And fifth, because of the warm waters of the Arabian Sea and the beaches. These are the 5 USPs. Before we started the projects of beautification of Goa, Goa already had what it needed. Because of this, it was the foremost international destination and destination for the domestic tourists. The millennium, it was among the top 10 most sought destinations in the world. Why? Because Goa's USPs were the ones that were attracting the people. And again, I say, Goa had all that is required to bring visitors in. It is blessed by God as far as His nature is concerned, as far as beauty is concerned. And we cannot improve on God's works by beautifying it further. Why I am saying this is now the master plan speaks of taking tourism to hinterland. We have the most wonderful hinterland, a place where I grew, where I am born and brought up, and I still live most of my life there. I'm not much of a city person. Now, we have to understand what is required. Of course, the tourists, they can definitely go, but for what? They have to see our villages as they are. They have to see our culture. They have to see our lifestyles, because the soul of Goa lives in its villages. The tourists have to experience this. We have to avoid concretization by any means, because unfortunately, the definition of development or beautification is nothing but concretization. We have to learn from what has happened in the coastal belt, especially in the North Goa coastal belt, and avoid that this thing happens in the hinterland. We have got a huge tract of navigable rivers. We take them through the rivers because Goa is created to be seen from the rivers, and let them experience. And as it is just 65 kilometers from east to west of Goa, I don't think there is a need of building hotels in the hinterland, because people will drive down, have a good look, and go back. If someone wants to stay, we should encourage homestays in the hinterland. Well, we'll be very surprised, and it's interesting that in 2002, 2003, if I'm not mistaken, the scheme for homestays in Goa was started. Why it was started? Because our then Prime Minister, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, personally wrote to the government of Goa, telling them about the lovely houses that we Goans have in the villages and all over, and some of them cannot be maintained because they are too huge and too expensive to maintain. He's saying, why don't you start a homestay? And government does have funds in order to sustain and to finance such schemes. If the state does not have them, Center can help them. This was a letter written by Mr. Vajpayee. There was a sort of a lot of activity in order to start homestays. We were involved in it. Dean was involved with it also, because that time I was in Goa Heritage Action Group. We tried our best. We gave them all the work, the drafts of the agreements and the selection, the committees, everything was formed, but unfortunately it never took off. If we want to really take care of our hinterland, of our Goa, of our nature, we have to encourage homestays there. How better can a tourist experience Goa than living with the families, joining them during their lunch or dinner, tasting the food they cook, and hear about Goa from them? This is what tourism is all about. So we have to be careful what we are doing, be very, very cautious, Of course, we expose our hinterland, but we make sure that the God's creation remain as they are. We can create, of course, facilities. Instead of a concrete jetty, we can put a wooden bamboo just off the cuff, which I'm suggesting. There are so many things that we can do. We don't have to, go lock, stock, and barrel and start huge schemes there. There's no need of that, because what we have is more than enough for us. Then we come across, as I said, all this is fine, but if we do not have an authority that controls this, then exactly what's happened in the West will happen in the hinterland. We have to have a very strong tourism department. There are enough laws, enough enactments. We don't require any laws. They have to be implemented, they have to be enforced. If this is done, we can streamline the tourism industry. Otherwise, it is, if it goes this way, even if it recovers after this recession that we are facing, after the depression we are facing, it is going to be another downward trend, slide, a creation of the industry and the government, and Goa will never see the dawn of tourism again. We have got a fantastic opportunity now to come out from the ashes and shine, and we have to take these opportunities. But we have to tread softly. If we are treading into nature, we are the people who are intruders. So to be included, we have to act according to the culture of the villages. And we have to respect the heritage, the history, and the lifestyle of the Goans who have safeguarded this throughout the centuries and who live in the villages. So if we want the state to prosper, we need the tourism industry to prosper. If we need tourism industry to prosper, we require proper enforcements. It started because of the people. When tourism started, there was no department of tourism. It was information and tourism. When in the coast, when we have the flower children coming in, there was requirement of some transport. Our pilot started. That was started by us, not by the government, but the people. There was no accommodation. Even all the houses on the coast, people who stay, the fishing community, they built one extra room and gave it on hire, and they created the accommodation. It was all inclusive, and it has to be this way when it comes to the villages. And then Goa will have no competition. There will be no competitors ever to come close to Goa. This is my experience. I've traveled almost half the world on various seminars and exhibitions and on tourism activities. And I've seen replicas of Goa in Central America, in South America, and in some parts of Far East, southern east of Asia, southeast of Asia, but Far East. And how they have sustained themselves and how they're slowly coming right on the top. This is how we would love the tourism to grow. Goa is not all gone. We can still save Goa. Still, it's a beautiful place if we get out from the overdeveloped places. Goa is not God's own country. That is a prerogative of another state. But if the good Lord wants to have a vacation, believe me, he'll come to Goa. So with this, I will end my address. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And let's see what Dean, my friend, my neighbor, my colleague in Goa Heritage Action Group, has to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very insightful and inspirational. Your perspectives have broadened our horizon on these issues. Truly, Goa is naturally beautiful, and we need to keep it that way. We are indeed truly grateful for your passion and contributions for the welfare of our state. I now invite Mr. to kindly share his views on the topic.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ralph, for setting out the pace of the topic. I think a lot of what you said is really hits the nail on the head in terms of what the problem is with Goa. And this pandemic has really brought us to our feet, no doubt, but it's also sort of created new directions in tourism for sure, and new directions even to the ecology and the economy of Goa, which is so important to us. And I think we need to look back as, what is the purpose of tourism and where did tourism really come from, the beginnings of tourism? If you look at, it came initially, throughout the world from travelers, usually people who were on, pilgrimages, and it slowly evolved where basically it was a sense of hospitality. You're creating a sort of a welcoming, a hosting. And the moment tourism moves into a thing where it becomes consumptive, where it becomes, where the sole purpose of it is to become, to have monetary gains, is that where it starts sliding downhill. And we've seen that happening in Goa, sadly. So what we've reached is what they call the carrying capacity. And I think we've reached that long ago. So either we reinvent tourism or we downsize tourism, for Goa. Because the way it's going, you can see the destruction to the environment. You can see the moral destruction, social destruction that's taking place in the state. The new directions to tourism, so whether it's the casinos or whether it's the nightlife that you see there, which brings on the other evils of drug, prostitution, large amounts of black money moving in, is something we need to look at very carefully, because that's really destroying the ethos of Goa. I worked on the regional plan for Goa, and looking at tourism was one of the aspects that we looked at, and how do we actually ensure that Goa's future is ensured in a proper manner. And, so when you look at the regional plan, you're looking at so many aspects of it. And you cannot really separate tourism from all the other economic drivers in the state here. Goa has multiple economic drivers, though tourism interestingly has what they call a trickle-down effect. So, even though, say, a hotel operator may get the money, it slowly moves down, to the people serving the restaurant, people who are supplying the food, the people who are other services, taxi drivers, whatever. So the trickle-down effect in tourism is tremendous. But we can also see the problems that it creates. A lot of people complain taxi drivers charge too much. Some of the restaurant food is, extremely expensive. So all these are fish gets expensive during the tourist season, mangoes get expensive during the tourist season. So there are these other sort of effects, negative effects that tourism also has. But we look back as what, how does tourism primarily benefit the local population? So the local population primarily has to be taken care of. Tourism is not just for tourists. It's to improve the livelihoods of the local population primarily. And that's what we must, it's very important to recognize that and ensure that happens first. To give you an example, I've been working with the hospitality industry for 35 years now, right? From the beginning, designing small boutique hotels to some larger projects, to projects in eco-sensitive zones, whether it's coastal areas or whether it's, jungle areas. We've designed jungle lodges. But everywhere we look, especially at this scale of projects, we look to say, how can we benefit the local population? So whether we're designing in the jungle, we make sure that say the men of the village actually are involved in the construction, the women are involved in the detailing of the projects we design, and eventually they absorb actually into the running of the hotel. So people get a local flavor. So when we were asked to design a 40-room hotel for the Maharashtra Tourism Development Corporation in a place called Haddi, which is just north of Goa, a very pretty place. It had a beachfront area, but the property actually eventually came into, this was before 91, it came into the CRZ area, and they both had land before that. And then they were looking for a land which is beyond the CRZ. And so I said, instead of building a 40-room hotel, what MTDC wants to do is promote tourism. So why not give tourism to the people? So we actually measured all the houses in that village of Haddi. There are fisher folk there, there are farmers there. And we said, let's create these homestays, which Ralph also spoke about. And in that way, these people become, so each house has 1 or 2 rooms which they rent out. And so they become the hoteliers, like mini micro hoteliers. but you create a cooperative among them, and you actually use the money which MTDC would have spent on a 40-room hotel. They're not very good at building a hotel, let alone running a hotel. So we said that money for tourism can actually be given to the people, improve their infrastructure, so improve their beachfront, put in facilities, maybe toilets or little restaurants on close to the beach side, improve their jetties, improve their marketplaces, their places of worship around the area. So it's the quality of the sort of infrastructure of the place is improved. So the people benefit primarily first, and they decide how tourism goes, which is another point that Ralph brought out. It has to be driven by the people. The people primarily need to guide where tourism goes. And the government is a facilitator in this process. I've been to Costa Rica a few years ago, and Costa Rica is a great example of tourism where we go can pick up from. Costa Rica, being a Spanish colonial place, has very much the same culture that Goa has, influenced, say, by the Portuguese over here for over 400 years. And it's got, so the same ethos of the place, it's got a brilliant coastline, brilliant forests over there. And what the Costa Rican government did is say that we need to ensure that we do not have mass tourism coming into the place. We need a tourism that's exclusive, that's sensitive to the environment, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's very high cost tourism. So they look at how do we preserve the environment, how do we preserve our eco-sensitive areas. And what they did was actually, they ensured that hotels are not above a certain size, especially in these eco-sensitive areas. Maybe in the cities it can be larger, but in these eco-sensitive areas, they said they can't be above a certain size, and let it be family run. Let them be run by families, so people get the local flavor of the family. It's not this even-plated sort of five-star experience all over. So it's high quality, it's high experience, but it's something which people can write back home about and say it's a unique experience, and it's something which people can move from a hotel to a hotel and have a completely different experience in the thing, where they're experiencing the local culture of the place, the local food, the music, whatever that place has to offer, or the environment around it. And that's really the way to go. So when I was there, I actually went and met the tourism director in Costa Rica, and they're very happy to share how they really went about it. And it's what he said was, we ensure that the government just helps people and we coordinate things. So if you go to Costa Rica, you can actually say you're traveling from one place to the other, you want to do an adventure tourism, you want to go into the forest, do a night drive, do zip lining, whatever. So there's one agency that runs the hotel, there's one agency that runs, say, the transport company, there's one agency that runs the adventure packages that you have, but it's all coordinated by the government. So one ticket, you're just paying the government the one thing. They will actually coordinate when your pickup is going to come, where you're going to stay, when this drive is going to be into the forest or the beach, whatever. And you don't have to worry about that because it's all coordinated by the government. While the government is not directly involved in tourism, it's merely a facilitator to ensure that tourism is well coordinated, well priced, that it's monitored, and the quality is ensured. And that's the way the government of Goa should also look at it. How do we actually ensure that tourism remains at a scale that is comfortable for the people, that ensures the protection of Goa's environment, protection of Goa's culture? And so these are models that we need to take back with us from abroad. And I'm quite sure Ralph has traveled to a lot of other destinations which have it. If you look at, say, Southeast Asia, they have a concept called agro-tripping, which is basically living in the fields. So if you look at places like Bali or other places, on the coast even, so you experience how people, grow their food, and you experience also how do you cook it, eat, the sort of delicacies that they have in that area, or the coastline that they have. So all these are sort of different type of tourism. So Goa has the potential to create, what Ralph said, a hinterland tourism, where it's a village tourism, where we can have these beautiful little houses where people can stay in. And there's just a cooperative setup that actually coordinates people living in these houses. So each village can have a unique identity to it, where people experience the village, and also all the people in the village benefit. So whether it's the local pub, whether it's the local marketplace, the local club, so it's a unique experience which you will never get in any hotel, and people would pay much more for such an experience rather than living even in a 5-star hotel. So it's important that we actually create a tourism which is unique, creative tourism, which is high quality creative tourism, which has great experience. And tourism is all about experience. The world today is spending more money on experiences rather than products, and rather than going for fancy cars and things over there. They're paying money for experiences, and that's what people have. Objects of desire are no longer there. It's the experience that people are looking forward to in this world today. And if we can provide that, that's a great opportunity. If we look at what's happening in Goa today, there are a large number of creative people who are coming down to Goa, people who are moving out, people in the creative fields, whether in the ad world, whether in the film world, they're coming on to Goa because Goa is that, bohemia in a way. It's very free thinking compared to the rest of India, which has become very strict in all its so-called model standards. But Goa has that freedom of choice. And I think that attraction, which allows people with a creative bent to come to Goa, can also be tapped in terms of tourism. How do we actually create a tourism which encourages creativity, in which creativity, whether it's in the field of music, the arts and everything. So that's another great attractor. There are prospects of medical tourism that come in here. I mean, we have actually the doctor population ratio is one of the best in India. And therefore we can actually look at something where people come here, not just to be treated or for life-threatening disease, but actually to get well. So you invest money really in people staying well rather than, as a preventive thing rather than a creative thing, and actually coming when it's the last recourse that they have. So this tremendous amount that Goa can offer, based on the sort of assets, the human skills that we have, the natural assets that we have, the built heritage that we have. So I think we need to look at how do we take care of that. There are a number of organizations across India which actually look at tourism, analyze tourism. There's a Bangalore-based organization called Equations, which actually looks at tourism, and it looks at it, of course, from a people's perspective, from an environmental perspective, and how can we, through these rich studies, can we actually create tourism which is responsible in a way. I haven't had a chance to go to the KPMG report, on the tourism master plan and policy at the moment. It seems to point in the right direction, but at times a lot of these reports are tweaked by the government to make sure that it fulfills their own agenda. But it's up to the people to really push that agenda and how they reinterpret things which really benefit the state and also preserve all that we have good going for us over here. So while working on the regional plan, the main thing that we had and discovered in the regional plan, which was unique to Goa, it's also common in the rest of India, but in terms of, we found in the villages of Goa, a module for development here. In every village has areas which are water bodies, fields which grow their food, water bodies collect the water, there are grazing areas, there are settlement areas, there are water harvesting areas, there are orchard areas. And all these actually form a complete unit of development. It's almost self-sufficient. So can we look at a tourism which allows the self-sufficiency per village, where each village actually it's a cell of development where it can decide its own mini tourism policy in a way. So there have been studies done, which GIPART is now assisting, where villages do their own studies and through the biodiversity board, say, what is our assets in the village? What are the sort of bird species we have? Is there anything, there's some great nature walks in the area? Are there, say, cycling experiences where one can go and, experience village life? And these are happening, again, driven by small companies, by individuals. For example, Feli Gomes in Asagaon has this little very unique tour where he takes them to people's houses, lets them taste food, enjoys music with them. And I think that's really interesting to see that individuals are actually creating a way to take tourism in a unique direction. And there are a lot of people who actually want that experience because they never get it sitting in a hotel, which gives them a very synthetic sort of experience. But I think we need to really take charge. We need to share with the tourism industry, with the government, what we think is the right way to go forward. I had an elderly friend who, of course, came down some years ago, and at that time you could see the downslide in tourism. And he said something that's very interesting. He says, if you let things die, you'll get flies, but if you actually plant flowers, you get honeybees. And that's so true. So we have to create a platform for good tourism to attract good people. We can't just say, okay, fine, we'll make it high-end tourism and we will we expect high spenders to come here, so improve our industry. We have to create that platform that makes Goa attractive enough to attract the right people we want. And this doesn't mean big spenders, but people who actually contribute, who recognize and respect the environment, respect the people of the thing. Right now, it's a lot of times I've heard complaints from hoteliers over here, especially people running restaurants, of the arrogance of some of the tourists who come here and just throw their money around it. And they must realize that spending money is a token of appreciation. It's come from that, where you give money as a token of allowing you to be hosted, to given a meal, to a place to stay. And it does not compensate for a simple thank you or a sort of a word of appreciation of what we do as hosts for this guest population. So we need to look at and redefine tourism and ensure that it benefits us as a people primarily. And if we look at the way the environment is going, the way our forests are under threat at the moment, the way our beaches, in 20 years, they say the conditions of our beaches due to sea level rise, due to erosion, due to pollution along the coastline, because a lot of the water is getting polluted, and therefore we lose also tree cover, grass cover, which will make the sand dunes vulnerable. In 20 years, the sort of coastline condition would not be conducive to actually having tourism in the state, at least beach tourism in the state, and tourism would have to move inland. So we need to start protecting that. How do we protect the thing? How do we protect the environment to ensure that we're not devastated by climate change? So these are real aspects that we need to sort of take care of and be cognizant of. Yeah, so I know we're running out of time, so I'll stop there. And I think we can take questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. De Cruz. It was really a pleasure listening to you. And thank you a lot for sharing your valuable knowledge with us. Okay, so we have the question round now. If any of you have any questions, it's your time to ask and they will be addressed right away. Okay, we have a question from Nafisa Dias. Nafisa, who is your question addressed to?
To both the speakers.
Okay, so, sir, what are your thoughts on overpopulation? Isn't overpopulation the main culprit for the decline in tourism?
Dean, you're going or I go? Or we compete? Okay, I'll address this from my side. I suppose when you say overpopulation, overcrowding with tourists, I suppose that's what you mean? Well, if that is the case, it is a problem. As I said, Goa is a very, very small state. We have to take care of its carrying capacity. On one side, we require prosperity. We require the communities to prosper. We require government revenues so that the welfare schemes can be funded. But by loading Goa with bus loads, this is not going to bring anything. Of course, it's the economic conditions probably. They come by buses, they live in the buses, they cook on the footpath, they mess the fields and they go back. Now nobody has got any benefit, no Goans have got any benefit from here. So we must target, we cannot keep anybody away, this is a democracy, but we must target the right type of people who will appreciate what we have and come for that. And believe me, the big spenders, the rich and the famous, they're sick of staying in five-star hotels, probably they own chains of them. If we give them a little bit of nature, this is what they will opt as the number one choice. So we can control the overpopulation by creating facilities that will attract the right type of tourists and not go, out and advertise and promote for mass tourism into Goa. That is the only way we can survive.
Mr. Cruz, would you like to say anything in reply to the question?
See, Goa is a very giving state, so when we actually did a study for the regional plan, we realized that the resources we have in Goa in terms of, water that we have, which is one of the highest rainfalls in India, the land that we have for planting food is tremendous. So it's a state where we can actually host a larger population even in the state. The problem is it's badly distributed, and it's badly planned. So the regional plan was an attempt to try and sort of address the thing of distribute population in a sensitive way so it doesn't have an impact on the environment. How successful it is anyone's guess. But I think it's important that we realize that if a state has to go, whether it's going through its own population or through a migrant population, we have to ensure that it doesn't destroy the state. And we have to ensure that all our resources, the water that we have, is well harvested. The food that we have is supported in a way. Right now, it's sad to see that Goa gets its fruits and vegetables from Belgaum, and we have a full capability of actually growing this in Goa. And it doesn't mean that we have to have exotic food, which is difficult to grow, in Goa. We can encourage local food, which is actually far better for our body needs and for the climate that we live in. So we need to have respect for the seasonal thing. So a lot of people say that order a fish, say, which is going to destroy the fish catch of the future because they're taking a young fish. And thing. So we need to respect that. Okay, fine. In this season, you only buy this sort of fish, or you only buy this. You eat this sort of food, whatever. So you're sort of sensitive to the ecology of the place, the agriculture of the place, and therefore you start supporting the local agricultural support system, the local fisheries support system. So and in that way we can actually take even a larger population of both tourists and even of migrants into the state. I wouldn't make that public now, still we get our act together. But I think it's something that we need to consider and put in place for certain, because we can see, from this pandemic, that a lot of people are trying to move down to Goa, buy new houses here, which they're welcome to. But before that, we need to put in, really good planning systems to prevent the destruction that could take place because of that.
Thank you so much, Mr. De Cruz and Mr. Souza, for your answer. We have another question from Leanne Kimberly De Souza to Mr. De Cruz. We have to promote tourism as well as save our beach tourism. How can we do it? Because I think what she's trying to ask is how do we have sustainable tourism? Like, would you say get in tourism as well as maintain the beauty?
So yeah, our beaches are, most of our beaches actually are facing a serious crisis. We go to some of these beaches and you see these beach beds all over the place, beach shacks almost touching each other right through the thing. And it's really sad to see that. So you can see that it's destructive, people drinking on the beach, and it's no longer a pleasure. In fact, I mean, I haven't gone to the beach for a long time because you suddenly feel like an outsider in your own land in a way, because tourism has gone excessively in the beach for sure. So I think how do we exercise these controls? So one is, of course, is to attract them away, from the beach, through hinterland tourism, through jungle tourism. I've designed these jungle lodges all over the place. And the real purpose of the jungle lodge is not just to host people in a lodge, in a sanctuary area, but it's also to educate them. So can we educate tourists? It's educate them on how important saving the environment is. So it's not just about, say, seeing the tiger in the jungle. It's about seeing the whole ecosystem together, how trees grow, how the insects in the area are, and the complete mammal life of thing, and how important it is to look at the coexistence of all these together and preserve these really special places. So, I mean, the lodge is not just to hold tourism, it's an education. And in a similar way, hospitality has to be looked at as an education. So can we educate people into a better way of life, into something which is less consumptive, into something which respects the environment, respects the people of the area? So that's extremely important when we look at hospitality. And so if you're looking at beach tourism, how do we get people to be sensitive about these beaches, I mean, or using of the beach, and realize that this beach is actually not much of it is going to be there 20 years from now. So therefore, while you enjoy it now, is how do you ensure that the future is preserved for it? And how do we actually reduce the impact of tourism? How do we, so we can share, the natural wealth that we have in Goa for sure. But I think our real master plan for tourism has to be one which takes these aspects on board.
Thank you so much, sir. I think the next question is pretty much what we all would want to know. As youth and citizens of Goa, what can we do to improve the condition?
Sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, sir. As youth and citizens of Goa, what can we do to improve the condition of tourism in Goa?
The question is for me.
Yeah, take it, Ralph. Take it, Ralph.
Answer.
See, we have got a role. As I had said first, it was people's movement. Tourism in Goa is people's movement. What role we have right now is protect what we have. Protect our own cultures, our communities, and be a part of this movement. Be a part of this movement in terms of homestays. Local cuisine is very important. It's sought after. Unfortunately, we don't get Goan food anymore in Goa. We get some sort of a thing that is mixed with all kinds of sauces, mix a few chilies, and it comes on a table. As Dean was speaking earlier, very soon we have to move inside, because not even if the beaches are not eroded, they are completely overpopulated. But people who really want an experience will go inside to the hinterland. And that is where we can be leaders in our own communities, making a list of what we have, going to our local bodies and get those things, conserved in a proper way, so that visitors can come and partake in a viewing there. They can go on tracks. And all this can be done at the village level by all of us. Each of us, we can be a part of it. As a community, we have to present what is unique with us, our own culture and our lifestyle. And this will take tourism to the next level.
If I can take that further from Ralph, I mean, it's good to mention the word youth. And we can see today in the Amche Mole movement, youth really driving the thing. And the young people who are really concerned about their future. We belong to a generation which is, on its way out. Sorry to say that, Ralph, but I think it's important that you all, as youth, chart out your future. That, I know I'm really sorry that we haven't done a very good job of that in preserving the future, but we will help for sure. But you'll need to take charge and say, this is what we want as our future. If you look at, say, employment in Goa, I mean, where do we have really good employment, quality employment? And sadly, we see our youth moving out of Goa for other places. So it's up to us to really make sure that our youth really get good jobs, they're well-paying jobs, creative jobs. So that's extremely important that we fight for that. And similarly with tourism, that we actually set out a future where tourism is beneficial and not destructive to the state. So I see youth playing an extremely important part. And you all have the power to actually bring about change, because people will listen to you. You all are the future forces of the state, and you'll need to take charge of that now.
Yes, most definitely, sir. In fact, as you're both were speaking, I just thought about it. It's like we youth have kind of a lot of Western influence, and because we are exposed to social media, we have a lot of Western idea. sorry, I'll repeat that again. Yes. So as I was saying, we youth have kind of, what you say, because of social media, we have like a lot of ideas and we would like to taste a lot of different food, Spanish food, French food. And we haven't really probably given time to knowing what Goa really is and the beauty that it has and the food that it is known for. Or is it, or could it be that the heritage hasn't been passed down properly from generation to generation? What are your views, sir?
Well, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, as they say. To start with, of course, there is demonstration effect. The TV is an influence on us, but we have to realize one thing. Whenever tourists comes for an experience, we should not try and do what others are doing, in the sense that there was a move when tourism master plan was being drawn for a lot of development. We cannot turn Goa into Singapore. Goa is what Goa is, and Goa should remember what Goa is. If somebody wants to go see Singapore, he will go to Singapore. He will not come to Goa and see a duplicate Singapore here. Same thing with our lifestyle, our cultures, our food. We have to come forward and present them. Unfortunately, this trade is dying. There's a lot of out immigration to start with. There's a lot of influence also of other areas that has diluted our dependence on per se Goan cuisine, but we have to bring them back. And bringing them back will make all the difference. There you will see how the tourism will develop.
Yeah, I think it's taking further what Ralph has said is really, if we can actually have a cultural tourism where people share the thing, but if you have to be careful about how far we take that culture. If you look at, say, what's happened to the Carnival, for example, now that's gone, beyond the thing. It's got extremely commercial. Sigmo, of course, is more genuine. So how do we actually get people here for festivities that is unique for Goa in such a way that they don't impose on the thing? It's curated in such a way that people participate passively in it, but it remains essentially Goan in its nature. So I think we need to look carefully if we are attracting people to share our cultural heritage, our food habits, our music, and our arts, because that's also, it's a sort of attractor for the thing. But when we're especially sharing our culture, there's a greater need to be careful about it so it's not abused. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering. We have a couple of more questions. I hope you don't mind. With the focus on rave parties and EDMs, is this the right strategy for responsible tourism in Goa?
I don't have my personal views on rave parties and EDMs in terms of this thing, which may differ from young, especially youth and children. I know enjoy some of these things, but we need to look at how is it changing things socially, and ensure that this doesn't happen. Yes, music's a great thing to have and share, but with a mass sort of events that we see today, does it bring along also the ills of whatever drugs or sort of the high living where people are drinking continuously and especially youth getting inebriated. So how do we prevent those sort of things? And if we look in music, can we actually go back to those unique old days? I mean, Ralph and I live in Saligaon. And I remember from the Saligaon Institute, which is there, we used to have these musical events and dances and everything. And it was so nice to have something at a small scale where, everybody, you could connect with everyone in the thing, that it was a friend or a friend of a friend which you had. And now it's almost faceless. You go there, you can hardly recognize anybody, going for these large events. And so you've lost the soul of the music in a way. And no doubt, of course, the music has changed over the years, but there's also can we actually bring on this new music? My nephew plays electric guitar now, so it's modern music. But so can we actually bring in these small sort of modern music, maybe in a small scale, keep it village, keep it local, where it's shared, among people, and it doesn't have to be these enormous, large commercial events necessarily, at least for Goa. So I think we need to look at these things carefully. While we embrace change, we need to see what's good, what's bad, and ensure that we keep the good and we prevent the bad.
If I may add something here, see, Goa is definitely a very popular destination in the international as well as in the domestic market because of its positioning. As far as international markets are concerned, Goa is a long-haul winter destination. What do we sell? We sell winter sun. This is the first thing that Goa sells. As far as the domestic destination is concerned, Goa was always known as a family destination. So keeping these in mind, positioning in mind, we have to see what the big events are going to do to Goa. When casinos made the entries in Goa, they had nothing to do with tourism. They were with the Home Ministry. They were brought into tourism very lately, a few years ago. Before that, tourism had nothing to do with them. Now, not that I'm against or for casinos. The thing is, they are very powerful presence. They have a very powerful presence. Their promotion is so focused, so good, that if we don't have our act together, and if the department is promoting Goa, they fail in their job. Goa can easily lose its positioning as a family destination, and it can go into as a gambling destination. Same thing with the rave parties. If we have very big events here, Goa should not lose its positioning as a family destination at the end of the day and be known as a rave destination. See, these are the two extremes. We have to work out a formula by which we can still not lose our positioning and maintain Goa in the domestic market as a family destination. This is what will bring the desired results in tourism and for the people of Goa.
Most definitely, sir. Thank you so much for addressing. We have one last question. Unfortunately, cannot deal with all the questions because of time constraint. But one last question: is there a fear that hindered tourism, that hindered tourism would change the character of our villages? Is there a fear that inland tourism would change the character of our villages?
Yeah, so it's important. It's definitely a well-founded fear because, so it's, again, we need these in-house studies that actually say, what can a village take? So in terms of tourism, so how much tourism can a village take? If you look at, say, Kalangut area, it's completely finished by tourism. All people are moving out. I mean, traditional families are moving out from the place because they can see the ill effects of tourism spread all over. A lot of children brought up in that area, are facing, alcoholic drug problems because it's so easily available close by, despite what the government says. And so you see definitely a social and moral degradation in a place which has gone beyond its capacity. And it's also happening in areas peripheral to these, coastal or tourism destinations. You can see the places like if you look at the north, if you look at Morji, and you look at Mandre and everything. Again, village life has changed, completely due to tourism. And we move it hinterland, there's a possibility the same thing could happen as well. So we need to ensure that these numbers, that the host population and the guest population have a good buffer ratio. So you need to say, okay, fine, for every host population that there is, there can only be one tourist, or say for 100 host population, there can only be one tourist. And those numbers have to be defined, based on what you have. So a tourist also feels unique in that place and does not sponge on, the host population over there, which affects them. So I think it's important that a very clear study is done if you are to move tourism inland, both in villages or in forested areas or field areas, whatever. So it has been done very carefully, and we've seen it gone wrong in the beaches. So we need to take care for sure.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, sir. To brush things up a little, I would now like to call upon Ma'am Rivya to summarize for us what our eminent speakers had to say. Good day. It has indeed been an insightful session this morning. A brief of the webinar. Our first speaker, Mr. Ralph D'Souza, highlighted the changing facet of tourism in Goa. As tourism is a sector that is first to be affected and the last to be recovered. Economies were affected in the past, but yes, the COVID has provided a different dimension altogether. Mr. D'Souza also explained how the economy of Goa, the households especially, are dependent on tourism, whether it is directly or indirectly. COVID has brought with it restrictions, fear, and fear not just of the virus itself, but fear of losing our savings, income, and employment. The face of tourism is now changing, and we need to streamline it so that we can protect and preserve the uniqueness of our state. This journey will not be a smooth sail, but yes, we do have a way ahead, provided we have efficient enforcement authorities. Our second speaker, Architect De Cruz, highlighted the purpose of tourism in Goa. He also spoke about the carrying capacity of the sector and the new direction that tourism has taken. This eventually does change what tourism was and what Goa is actually known for. He also spoke about the trickle-down effect, an important concept in economics that takes us to the supply chain of tourism. The main aim of tourism is to improve the livelihood of the locals in the state of Goa, and this is cited with the examples of Costa Rica and Southeast Asia, as well as the homestays that are constructed using employment abilities of the localites. It is Goans who need to drive tourism in our state, and that the government are mere facilitators for the same. Besides, he also highlighted the types of tourism laying emphasis on medical tourism, art and music, and creativity. He also highlighted how our villages are blessed with resources, thus making our economy self-sufficient. As responsible individuals, we do need to create an environment that allows for clean and green tourism. Well, this was an enriching experience, and indeed it will go a long way in fueling the interest of our young population, who are the most important stakeholders in responsible tourism in Goa. I also thank our speakers who have addressed all the questions eloquently. I now request Ma'am Glency to propose the vote of thanks.
I, Glency Borges, on behalf of Department of Economics, Carmel College, take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to all those who have helped us to make this webinar a resounding success. At the outset, I would like to thank our very distinguished resource persons, Mr. Ralph D'Souza and Mr. Dean De Cruz, for taking their time out from their busy schedule, for making excellent presentations and making this webinar interesting and meaningful. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence. Today, you have inspired many minds and motivated our students to engage in issues that matter to their quality of life. We are truly grateful. I also wish to express my gratitude to our principal, Dr. Alina Braganza, for encouragement and enthusiastic support. This event would not have been successful without your presence, dear participants, students, faculty of our college and other colleges. Our heartfelt thanks to you for paying your valuable attention and active participation. A special thanks to our technical support staff, Mr. Madison Dias and Harish Shah, for their unflinching support and coordination. Last but not the least, a special word of appreciation to our student volunteers for anchoring this event. With these warm words, we draw curtains on today's webinar. Once again, thank you all. Take care and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.